because elections are important, we have this candidate forum, and we thought we would lead off our discussion and forum today with a brief presentation from the Registrar of Voters. These are the people who I think epitomize the saying that if you do your job well, then people don't know that you've done anything at all. People just take elections for granted. And unfortunately in the news, we know that that's very difficult work. So April, do you want to share with us some information?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So I just wanted to touch on some important information for the primary that is coming up here very soon. Sorry, let me start this presentation.
You can, on the bottom there, on the bottom there was the option to start the slideshow, but
okay, let me let's see. Sorry, the Zoom bar at the top.
If you go across the top, if you keep moving across the top, there's, it looks like the play button with a little T.
Okay.
Up, right, next one over to the right, next one, one more. Hold
on, sorry. The Zoom bar at the top of my screen is blocking it. I'm just trying to move. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that looks like the play button on a T there.
Okay, hold on one moment.
I think you may have missed the conversation we had earlier about the anxieties of virtual meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me share my screen again. Definitely causes some anxiety. Okay, here we go. Share that. Okay.
That's the button. There you go.
So, okay, thank you for everybody's patience with me. So my name is April. I am with the County of Santa Clara's Registrar of Voters office. And I specifically oversee the operations for the folks who secure the vote center locations and assure ADA compliance and staff the vote centers as well, the folks who help process our voters. So I just wanted to cover everything that is important to know about the primary that is coming up. Election day, of course, is June 7th. It is a statewide direct primary election, gubernatorial. Each registered voter in Santa Clara County that is active will receive a vote by mail packet. There will be 101 vote center locations countywide for voters to use and 99 vote by mail drop boxes as well. Just a little information, this is our county's 5th election under the Voters' Choice Act legislation. We first began in March 2020, and the last one that we held was the September special election of November 2021. In your mailbox, if you are a registered voter, you can expect to receive 2 election mailers. These are mailed to all registered voters. They go out, the first one goes out 45 days prior to election day, and the second one goes out 29 days prior. The images here on my screen are just examples of the mailers that are sent out. For the vote by mail ballot, this is the information that you should know. We do mail it to every active registered voter. We start mailing these ballots out 29 days prior to election day. They are delivered to you in a no postage necessary paid envelope so that you could either mail it back to us, or you are welcome to visit one of our 99 Dropbox locations or one of our 101 vote center locations. The vote by mail packet is a large white envelope. It does include a postage paid blue return envelope. Your ballot cards, there will be 3 for this primary election. We do provide voting instructions on how to fill out that ballot. We give Dropbox and vote center locations closest to your home, and we do provide the I voted sticker as well. For all of our vote by mail ballots, they must be returned by 8 p.m. on election day, or postmarked no later than 7 days after election day. So that is very important to know if you do plan to utilize your vote by mail ballot and send it via the mail. You can also vote in person if you don't want to use your vote by mail ballot. We will have, again, 101 vote center locations. Our early voting centers do open Saturday, May 28th through Monday, June 6th. And then, of course, we also have them open on election day as well. For the early voting days, we are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and that is all the way through. So we don't have technically don't have a time where we close for lunch. It's open for those consecutive 8 hours. And we do like to always point out that there is 2 weekends prior to election day that you can come out and visit our vote centers. That will ensure that you don't, encounter a line and that you're able to get processed quickly. And if you have any questions or want to talk to our staff, I think that would be the best time to visit the vote centers, is definitely ahead of election day. For the vote centers that you come to vote in person, you can bring your vote by mail ballot. You can drop it off. If you made an error, you can come and surrender it there. We would be able to issue you a new ballot. At our vote centers, we also offer ADA voting options, touchscreen ballot, audio ballot, and we do have our facsimile ballots as well as bilingual ballots, and those can be accessed at our vote centers as well. We do have now conditional voter registration or same-day registration and voting since we are a VCA county. And so you're able to access that option at our vote center locations as well, in addition to being able to update your address, replace a ballot, or access curbside voting. So that is where you're able to pull up to a designated spot, stay in your car, and we would bring out the ballot to you, whether it be paper or electronic. These are our CVIGs, our County Voter Information Guide. This is exactly what you will receive if you are a registered voter. There is an English version as well as the option to request this in the bilingual languages that we do provide assistance for. There is early voting also at our office for those that may not know. You can start early voting at our office starts next Monday, May 9th. We are open from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And so you can visit our website, www.sccvote.org, for our office hours, location, and additional information. And then these are the official ballots. They are available in 9 languages. Then our facsimile ballots, we do have them available in these 5 additional languages. And for our County Voter Information Guide, we do support the 5 federally mandated languages here, of course, including English. We actually also are in the midst of conducting our language workshops. I just will add, and we do provide them in all of the languages listed here. There is our vote center list that will be available to the public beginning next week on Monday. You can visit our website, again, sccvote.org, and you'll be able to find the vote center list as well as our Dropbox list. Our website is very helpful. You can look us up directly by the URL. You can do our social media keyword search for SCC Vote. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And our YouTube is very great, very helpful. We've provided a lot of how-to videos, and we've done some in other languages as well as in ASL content as well. So if you do have social media, we ask that you please follow us and share our posts that you find interesting. And of course, if you have any questions, I would welcome you to either call our office, that's 299-VOTE is our general line, or if you're interested in receiving the information I've presented or you have any questions, you can always reach us by email at outreach@rov.sccgov.org. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, April. We're always interested in the slide deck. So if you have, if we can get a copy of that we can share. Important takeaway that I took was it's never too late to register.
Absolutely.
Wow. So not like in the old days. So it's never too late to register, and go to sccvote.org.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
2 important takeaways. So thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
makes it all possible.
Yes, I'll get these
Great.
slides over to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure they get circulated.
Great, thank you.
Um, and just in case people miss that, Cupertino is a family-oriented community. Our council member is showing off her grandbaby. So there's a couple of votes right there. If you know, kissing babies, I think that comes with it, right? All right. Enough about that. Let's get started. Consistent with how we've operated these forums in the past, we've had a random drawing, and each candidate will begin with a 2-minute introduction speech about what they want to talk about, why they're running, who they are, and what they stand for. And to start off, Kevin, you will be our first speaker.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kevin Jensen. I am married 39 years to my wife, 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and I'm grateful. I have a big debt to pay back. My life didn't start very well. My earliest memory is outside of the prison, the worst prison in the United States, where my father was doing time for armed robbery. So from that point on, there was dysfunction. But at some point in my life, I decided to make a difference. And my wife and I, married at 19, were given a chance when I was 21 by the sheriff's office. And I am still paying back that debt. From top recruit in the academy to all the major divisions like management and executive management at the sheriff's office, nobody has the experience and the job competencies that I do in this very department. Nobody has the endorsements I do. 97% of the employees have endorsed me to help change the very changes that we need for reform in this department. I've been calling out the problems here for over 12 years. My issue is that we deserve better as a community. I've done all the major divisions, I've served with excellence, and I've been a life of service in community, in statewide and national nonprofits. My opportunity now is to take us all to a better place. I have the backing of all of the law enforcement individuals that have backed so far. I believe that with the great relationships I've made over so many years in Santa Clara County, over 37 years, I just need to make a phone call and we can be collaborative with anybody from the Regional Intelligence Center at San Francisco to every major chief and statewide and local. So what I want to do now is change this department to what it can be. Good leadership can change it. I worked a major portion of my time in Cupertino. I was actually selected as the Cupertino captain by the 3 city managers before the sheriff overturned it. I have a lot to pay. I have a lot to pay for what I've been given, and I want to give back. So if you'll allow me, let's make change together. I love the area. I love law enforcement because we are actually there to provide service, not to take power. So help me change our county. I appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Super. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for your timeliness. As for those of you, my esteemed coworker Edna is behind the blue curtain running the clock. So we starting out with our 2-minute intro. The next one goes to Sean. Sean, if you could, 2 minutes for your introduction.
Hi. Happy to be here. My name is Sean Allen. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about 32 years of combined service. I was born and raised in this county. Married, father of 4. And I've led our smallest and largest unions. The majority of my career I've spent as a training officer and a trainer as a supervisor, primarily focusing on de-escalation. During my entire career, I fought corruption like no other. No one has fought corruption longer. I've sued for discrimination and prevailed. I've represented employees who have had to do the same thing. So I'm very in tune to where the problems are and how long they've existed and with who and where they started. I'm the only person that has that standing record that can prove it and show a standing record of fighting the corruption. As a young man myself, I was arrested and incarcerated and exonerated in this county for something I didn't do. And the perspective that no other candidate running can give you. Collectively, these things give me a unique perspective to where the situations have resonated and where they exist now and how to fix them. As sheriff, I would have zero tolerance for any type of corruption, any type of racial discrimination, any type of sexual or homophobic bias. We've seen that exists in our agency as well. And you know, my main concern is public safety, accountability, reforms, and transparency, and the things and challenges that they're connected to our mental health problems that exist today. Getting them adequate service, addressing the homeless problem and the substance abuse problem in our community. This is my community. I live here amongst you. I've always lived here. I'm committed to service, and as I have been, and good service, and making sure we're better, smart justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Next is Christine.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Nagaye. I have been serving my country and my community for most of my adult life. My time in the military, United States Army, 5 years, and my 20 years with the Sheriff's Office has taught me the importance of assembling a diverse team to get a very wide range of perspectives. I am not a politician, and I've never had political ambitions. I'm a law enforcement professional who understands organizations. I know when organizations are run poorly, and I know how to listen to people. And as sheriff, I will support our deputies and our staff, and I will involve them in the decision-making process. I will work with the auditors, local officials, and the public to transform our agency into a 21st century model for community-based public safety. I will bring back the old-fashioned values of human dignity and respect. I'm running for sheriff to change law enforcement, not just here, but to influence change everywhere. Law enforcement needs to take a serious self-inventory and ask, who are we here for? And I have taken a look, and I have seen so many things that need to be addressed. We need to look no further than the summer protest of 2020 to see the arbitrary uses of violence and the aggressive tactics that have no place in our civilized society. And the instances of violence that we saw were the only ones that were caught on camera. As sheriff, I can make the policy changes within the agency that I am in charge of. I will identify the bad apples, and as well as those who have protected them, and do everything within my legal ability to get rid of them. As a politician and an administrator, I will lobby the appropriate entities to make the changes needed so that our communities feel safe and valued. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, we have, we did have some questions submitted beforehand from.
Rick, do you want me to do mine?
Oh, thank you, Bob. I had encouraged you guys to remind me, just powering through this. Yeah, go ahead. Is there anybody else I forgot? No. Okay.
Thanks.
Bob,
I
go
appreciate
ahead.
it. Thank you. So let me start by sharing a little known fact about me. My ancestors settled in this county in 1850s, and my great uncle was actually the sheriff of Santa Clara County in the 1887s. So my roots run deep, yet I'm actually considered the outsider in this race. But I bring a really unique paradigm on policing based on my diverse background. I have experience at the executive level in a sheriff's organization, as well as a municipal police department. 36 years has provided valuable experience from 3 different agencies, the largest sheriff's organization in the world in Los Angeles, where I spent 27 years, a small department in Menlo Park, and then the last 4 years as a chief of Palo Alto, very progressive and engaged city. And I've worked some very challenging cities and very challenging communities, so I understand the diversity that's required for this position. I've been actively engaged in the community conversations around accountability, transparency, and police reform, conversations that really are important and really have to have been had, especially in this time for our society. But there's still so much more work to do. The issue of homelessness and mental health is a growing concern for Santa Clara. And I've done work both in Menlo Park, and as the chief of Palo Alto, we were the first municipality to bring a psychiatric emergency response team to our community, which partners a police officer and a mental health clinician. But crime is really a major concern for residents right now, and it requires greater collaboration. And I led a crime fighting initiative in Los Angeles, the size of this entire county. We were successful in reducing crime by working with our community partners, our law enforcement partners, and businesses. And I'll talk more about that later. But one of the things that I have that's very unique is an extensive background in mindfulness and compassion cultivation training, which I think is really needed for our workforce right now because it's suffering. And we need it so they can better serve our communities today, tomorrow, and well into the future. So I appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who did I forget? Great. All right, so we're gonna start with the round of questions. As I'd indicated, they were submitted by the audience, and some of them, as you might expect from Chamber of Commerce, involves the recent retail crime, organized or not, shoplifting, smash and grab. What can the sheriff's office do? And with an addendum with a new question specifically for small businesses. If you read the news, highly capitalized retail is doing fine. The people who tend to suffer are those smaller businesses. So there's a lot of interest in our community about what our new sheriff can do to help and deal with and respond to those types of issues. First off is Kevin. You have 2 minutes to start. The other candidates will have 1 minute to comment on the question, and then you'll get a 1 minute close. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. So in order to be able to help small business, we have to understand the small business needs. We also have to understand the crime and where it's coming from. As I've been aware, serving and still teaching for the law enforcement accreditation agency in California, and having all of the friends I still left over in UASI and NCRIC, Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, we have a problem now with transnational criminals that are coming over, most of them involved with gangs, coming in, doing these crimes in our area. And there wasn't a lot originally of coordination, but now through our partnerships, the thing that I would do is utilize my 17,000 connections through the FBI National Academy, where I was the California chapter president, and I would work with others. What we do now is we find out it's not just affecting Cupertino, it's not just affecting Saratoga, it's affecting all of us, and they travel around a lot. San Jose PD did a great job recently of actually arresting some of the players that were more local, but the ones that are from farther away, they're going around with impunity and they're just getting away with things. Those are people that we can actually work together with. I know that there's some intelligence out there now that is tracking them. I can't share it all, but what I can tell you is if we start educating our small businesses and then doing the intelligence work in the background, we can actually make a dent. The other thing we've never used, we're down to 20 reserves. When I was there running the reserve unit, we had over 100, and we deserve more. We also deserve a robust volunteer program. If we have these resources, we can use badge staff, even though our resources are shrinking. We can use reserves who want to help in their communities. And some of them are these small business owners that I've worked with for a long time. We need to think outside the box. We need to use all of our resources, our intelligent partners, work cooperatively with all of the other leaders in our area, the police chiefs that I've come up through the county with, and we need to solve this together, not apart. Together, we can make a dent. We already are, and I wish I could share more with you about how that's happening, but good news is coming.
Great. Thank you. Next is Sean. You have 1 minute to talk about this same issue.
As it relates to small business, I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing has to do with our mental health and our homeless population and our substance abuse problems. These are some of the people that are trying to eat and survive by committing crimes against small business owners. So addressing that in the preventative area and getting involved in making collaborations with nonprofits and other associations that can address the homelessness, that can address the simple things like getting people food and getting them access to ways they can be self-sustainable, like jobs and computers and so on and so forth. I think will impact some of the stuff we're seeing. As far as law enforcement resources are concerned, we have BART that's coming into our community in this county. We've created some other escape routes, and being collaborative with other police agencies on a larger scale with the flash robberies and stuff like that are ways that I would address that and being actively engaged in suppressing those type of activities. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Christine, you're up next.
I've been looking and researching throughout different agencies, and San Francisco County has a 10B program, which allows private retailers to hire the PD officers to provide the safety and the security. They've also implemented a 10A program that will now allow businesses to contract with the deputies of the sheriff's office. So this program, it does serve as a deterrent, and anybody seeing a law enforcement officer in a store will create a deterrence from any future retail crime. While being able to contract with the sheriff's office is certainly a way to deter it, this cannot be a long-term answer to handle the growing issue of retail theft. There really needs to be more presence of deputies and officers in the communities that will help curb low-level crimes. And longer strategies, long-term strategies will include things like guaranteeing quality K through 12 educations, making colleges more accessible and affordable, and making sure everyone has access to quality job opportunities. And these are all societal changes that will eventually curb crime.
Thank you. And Bob, you
Thank
are
you.
up next.
No, well, here's where my experience comes in. I'm the only candidate in this group that's actually addressing this issue. I've been addressing it for many years since Prop 47 was brought into play. And it is not just the shoplifting incidents. This is organized crime, and this is very organized and structured. And we have to get very strategic about how we do that. To my comments in the opening, that's what I did in LA, Menlo Park, and Palo Alto. And if you look in Palo Alto, we're one of the few agencies that actually had a reduction in these crimes, even though we have a very robust community, we have a very large mall, but we've been able to do that by strategically being visible where necessary. High visibility is the key, really collaborating with our partners, because again, many of these crews are not from the region. To what Kevin said, some are international, but a vast majority are regional, meaning they're from Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Los Angeles County. They're from the state, and they're coming and they're doing these things. So we have to be very, very strategic about how we do this, and we have to partner with our businesses. And that's how we've been successful, is actually partnering with our businesses, using technology, some involving GPS, some utilizing systems that are in play. Just on a great conference call this morning about a very outstanding, robust system that will help connect all the pieces that we need so we can address it from a regional standpoint. And that's where my experience comes into place. Thank you.
And that's time. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Great. And Kevin, you get a quick 1-minute close to wrap up discussion on retail crime.
Thank you. While I think that it should be an option for small businesses if they want to hire someone, we shouldn't put that added cost on them. I believe that we should be solving the problem. We should be solving the problem with them, utilizing our resources with high visibility, also utilizing reserves. And we need to grow that department again, because right now that division is very small and there are people that want to serve. And actually some of the small business owners and public want to be on it. But the other thing is the ALPRs, the license plate readers, the flock cameras, without giving too much away, those analytics we have now, it's not just a camera anymore, it's a computer. We can find a car of the right color, the right size, traveling in different directions. Using those analytics, we've been able to stop some of these crimes. I think we have to start thinking strategically, like Bob said. I think we have to start thinking about using our partnerships, and we have to do a better job about utilizing the resources in public partnerships and business partnerships. If they know the resources that are out there, I don't think they want to spend the extra money to hire somebody. They're already under a burden as it is.
Great. Thank you so much. We have, I was hoping to work in a, I think there's been a crime that the International Monetary Fund just reached out to me the other day, and I provided my passport, mother's maiden name, and I never got the money. So I don't know what happened there, but it's amazing what's out there, and kudos to all of you in law enforcement for dealing with the incredible breadth of crime that's out there. One of the questions we received several times was Prop 47. And Sean, you get to start with this one. And there's a lot of concern about the Prop 47 and the decriminalization or the diminishment of penalties for some crimes. And there's a lot of concern that this has in fact fueled some of the crime that is well publicized in the news recently. So why don't you get 2 minutes to start? Why don't you begin?
All right. Well, there's parts of it that I support and parts that I don't. The idea of smart justice is I think, what we're looking at here. The charging people with nonviolent crimes and sending them to state prison or keeping them incarcerated in county jails at a cost of over $100,000 a year upon average isn't smart. So as opposed to giving people, again, alternatives to some of the things that they're small crimes and nonviolent issues that we're seeing. I think that we have been successful in getting some people out of jail and out of prison and by resentencing those people smartly. And we're just the attempt to reduce recidivism and, of course, reduce crime is an ultimate goal. And I think that the resentencing does part of that. We're not as successful in preventing crime and giving people alternatives to crime so that they won't commit those crimes. And I think we need to start again the educational process, schooling in the home, and with associating or involving inclusive with nonprofits and other organizations that can assist us, so that certain people who are involved in these low-level crimes or these crimes against small businesses and so on, or however you want to apply it, would do something different than what they're doing today. And I think that Prop 47 is doing some of that, but we could do better. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Next is Christine.
Yes.
1 minute to talk about Prop 47.
Right. So Prop 47 initially was implemented to address the pipeline of funneling people into the system for committing lower level and nonviolent crimes. And they are typically done in order to survive. So by convicting people of nonviolent felonies and incarcerating for these nonviolent crimes, we could be guaranteeing recidivist activities. So unfortunately, there are some unintended consequences on how Prop 47 was written. It was well-intentioned, but in my opinion, it does need to be fine-tuned. As far as the data goes, the Public Policy Institute of California found that there's no evidence that violent crime has actually increased with the result of Prop 47. And they took studies from 12 counties, and they also found that recidivism rates slightly decreased due to Prop 47. So Prop 47 is a priority for me, and it takes more than just sending somebody back out to society, and we need to grab it and address it as soon as we can.
Super. Thank you. Bob, you're next.
Thank you. So yeah, Prop 47, like I said, came into play when I was I've been an executive. So I've been dealing with it for the past many, many years, and it has had an impact. But the reality is changing laws in the state are very challenging. So what we have to do is work with the working law as it is. Yes, there's been mention of changing it, modifying it, but we've already seen some of those revisions pulled out of the state legislature as it's been going forward. So what do we have to do? We have to take advantage of some of the systems in place, because if you remember Prop 47, the savings that were going to be associated with that were supposed to be given to us so we could have programs in place. The problem with the programs for the diversion or whatever it may be, they haven't been able to really get going. And that's what we have to do, is get them up and running again, get them in place, and make people who commit these lower level crimes accountable to have to go to the programs. If it's a mental health issue, if it's a diversion issue for alcohol or drugs, go through the rehabilitation so we don't have the recidivism. There's a lot more we can do, but I can't address it all in a minute. But I do think there's a greater need for rehabilitation in our county jail in our current system as it is, because we are housing more individuals for property related offenses.
Okay, thank you. Kevin.
Thank you. The problem is balance and unintended consequences. Every time something like this comes up, it seems like there are people that want to do all one way or all the other way. And we're not getting something that's in the middle that says what's the right thing to do. And in these consequences, we should have thought of ahead of time. I did. When it came out, my issues were you're going to have purse snatching, you're going to have a gun theft included in Prop 47 crimes. I don't believe that that's what they wanted. What we have now, low-level offenders, Prop 47 helps. But these serial offenders, these people who are lifelong criminal offenders, I'm open to them getting rehabilitation after there's a deterrent factor. If we don't have a deterrent, then that's why all these crimes are happening. And I think the numbers are actually larger. What we found is that we're not getting, they're saying some crime is actually dropping. No, nobody's reporting the low-level crimes because nobody's doing anything about it. When you take people to jail and they're out on the street before you get back in your car or back to the beat, that's not working. We need things that are going to help people out that are low-level offenders and addiction and mental health services, but we need to keep repeat offenders behind bars and get them help there.
Great, thank you. Sean, back to you for closing remarks on this question.
And the idea here is, like, again, it's smart justice, and we're not doing it smartly. This law has helped. We haven't been able to refine it because of the challenges through the legislative system. But I think we're not focusing enough on preventative measures. The sheriff's office has lost track of that since they took over the jails. The Department of Corrections was very focused on that. We've got rid of a lot of our programs that we should have, and you can blame it on staff and whatever else, but it's the bottom line is just leadership and making effective collaborations and doing the right thing. We're going to pay on the front end or the back end. The idea is to prevention that impacts the small business owner, and that impacts our recidivism problem in our jail population and our prison populations. It affects human beings on the in and on outside, the victims and the people who are the persons are involved in the legal offenses and breaking the law. Thank you.
Super, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. We're moving on to the quintessential Silicon Valley crime question, which is, as sheriff, how would you address the changing technologies used in crime? This is Silicon Valley. How does that affect your responsibilities? How will it affect you as sheriff? And to begin, we have Christine, you have 2 minutes.
All right. So cybercrime, technology crimes is a range of crimes, including theft and fraud, hacking, data and identity theft, and virus dissemination, and also the storage of illegal materials such as child pornography in the digital format. The only thing that all these crimes have in common is that they can be perpetrated by using a computer. Where the definition fails is that about every criminal act today involves a computer. For example, the guy selling heroin is using a smartphone, which is a computer. Emails may establish the association between members of a burglary ring, and a murderer or a rapist may have kept images on his or her target on a laptop or a tablet. So in order for law enforcement agencies to combat cybercrime or technology crimes, they need to know what resources are available. Therefore, many agencies turn towards the feds. The FBI and the United States Secret Service are the agencies who are best equipped to investigate cybercrimes because they have worldwide outreach. The problem with the feds is they can't handle every single cybercrime case, and certainly not every criminal case with a cyber element, which means that local law enforcement agents have to shoulder the burden. So whether a local law enforcement agency is equipped to perform a digital investigation comes down to skills and training of its officers and the tools available to them. And most agencies do not have this capability, which is one of the reasons why the closure rate for cybercrimes is so low. The first thing that local agencies need to do about cybercrime is to encourage the victims to report the crime. The FBI has set up an internet crime complaint center so that cybercrime victims have a place to turn to. And until the sheriff's office can get the staffing and move forward with a cybercrime task force of their own, these investigations will have to be continued to be handled through the FBI.
Thank you so much. Next on this question is Bob.
Yeah, I mean, Christine definitely covered the cyber crimes, but really when it comes to technology, I want to address the issues that are facing our communities, such as Cupertino, and how suspects and criminals are using technology to their advantage today. And one of the things that we're seeing in our communities is all the great things that we've done over the last few years, whether it's acquire LPRs, put up surveillance cameras, connect with flock systems, whatever it may be, utilizing drones in certain cities. The reality is they're starting to overcome the technology that we're putting in place. They know how to defeat it. And that's where, going back to my earlier comment, we really need to regionalize our response to this. And we just had that great meeting today regionally about collaborating to put all these systems in place so law enforcement can access them at any given time, rather than addressing all the individual pieces of technology and the silos associated with them. Because until we can connect all our technology together, they're going to continue to find ways to bypass it. So I think that's a really important piece. We are the Silicon Valley. So if we can't do it here, I don't know where we can. So I'm looking forward to the exciting opportunities ahead.
Super. Kevin, you are up next.
Thank you. So one of the things I've been doing in addition to law enforcement is serving in nonprofits for my whole life. Kiwanis for 25 years. I was the Cambrian president. But one of the ones that's been very beneficial is the federal level, 7 years on the FBI National Academy alumni, and then 7 years on the FBI National Citizens Academy, because I'm also a citizen. And one of the things we've done when I was the national president with 56 nonprofits was work together with the federal agencies to do a better job of getting out cyber information, the latest threats, and actually provide experts to come and educate people so that they can avoid them. The other issue out there right now is cyber fraud for elders. We just gave a great presentation on this, and the amount of money that is lost by elders due to these cyber frauds and other types of scams is outrageous. It's in the multi-millions. There's a DA agency and a hotline here in the county. The FBI is good for that, but really the DA's office is better if you want to get some results right away. So we need to work with our partnerships to educate.
Super, thank you. Sean, you're next on technology crime.
Well, a lot has been said already, but just to add to that, I think someone already said it, we are in the hub of technology. It's the Silicon Valley, so we have to use our resources and make those collaborations. And we're seeing things from as simple as the people organizing sideshows through the internet. And my daughter works for Facebook, and part of her job is to surf Facebook profiles to see what kind of crime is being committed, and then report it to agencies. So the agencies, of course, in crime, because it's social media, it affects the entire world. So making those collaborations and having the ability to be effective internationally as well as nationally, and as well as regionally and locally, we have that here. This is the hub of technology right here in our country. So we need to use that. We need to also include our personnel and make them a part of those task forces, that the task force that affects the stuff locally, so they can have some local reach, and we can make sure we're on top of things. Thank you.
Super, thank you. And Christine, back to you for closing comments on this.
Yes, so we absolutely need to tackle cyber crimes, technology crimes head on. And my first priority would be to go to the board of supervisors and request the funding to get that task force completed. And then it would, like my partners had said, outreach to various entities such as the FBI. I have spoken with the FBI people in various areas, and they would be willing to come down and do the training and go over the equipment that we would need and what we would need to start a task force of our own, so we can have that safety within our communities. And that's a big part of my platform, community outreach, to make sure our communities are safe and heard and valued.
Great. Thank you. All right, the last of our structured questions have to do with the Cupertino and other communities in the West Valley are contract cities. As the local police department for Cupertino and other West Valley cities, how would your tenure as sheriff impact service to those communities? And we begin with Bob.
Thank you. Well, going back to my experience in Los Angeles, I served contract cities for a vast majority. I worked every aspect of patrol, from a deputy to a sergeant to a lieutenant to a captain. And all of those had contract cities, whether it was the Rosemead area as a supervisor, the Temple Station, which had 5 contract cities associated with it, or as a commander or a lieutenant in Palmdale Station, then ultimately as the captain of Lancaster Station, all of that which was a contract city. So I have familiarity with contract law and contract cities, how that works. For you in Cupertino, it's really important, right? And one of the things I've heard from whether it's Cupertino, Los Altos Hills, Saratoga, is that the Patrol Services Division does a really good job at serving our communities here, and that's great. But one of the things I would do as a sheriff would enhance that relationship in doing what I've done in all my commands, whether Los Angeles, Menlo, or Palo Alto, in creating community advisory groups. And what that is, and it's been the same everywhere I've worked, is I immediately create an advisory group made up of residents and business owners within the community. And that's important because that way we have a liaison on a regular basis, interacting, finding out what we need to do, how to address it, putting strategic plans in place, and even maybe talking about policy protocols and how you want us to serve your community. They've worked extremely well. I have a lot of my endorsements are from advisory members from Menlo Park and Palo Alto, as well as some of the council members of the contract cities currently served. But it's something I think is really important. We have the resources. When I say we, the sheriff's organization has the resources to provide contract cities with a vast variety of services. And we need to take advantage of that and expand on that. But again, it goes back to connecting all the community stuff and really keeping our services in your city. And one of the things I'm working on is expediting how our officers respond and book inmates or prisoners that they have to put into custody and getting them back to your city even faster. There's ways we can use technology to do that. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
Thank you, Bob. Next, Kevin.
Thank you. Well, I'm very grateful for the opportunity for that question because that's where I spent most of my career, whether it was as your traffic sergeant, which traffic seemed to be the #1 priority for people, and I was there and it still is, and we have to do a better job. But you're served by a great captain right now, and Urena is a good man. Whether it was putting myself through Leadership Cupertino so I could understand all the business and the functions working out of the city offices, whether it was being in Saratoga, and that's where I saw the sign, wanted deputy sheriffs with my wife and got hired there. The West Valley is very, very important to the sheriff's office. They are our lifeblood as our unincorporated areas are shrinking. We want to provide the best service and have the best partnerships. So I have a familiarity, whether it was Sandy's booth at Hobie's or Richard Lowenthal talking with everybody. I have the relationships for decades that go back, and I look forward to serving Los Altos Hills, Cupertino, Saratoga, and the surrounding area as part of the overall part of the sheriff's office. To me, those relationships go deep. The understanding of the needs go deep, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. Next is Sean.
Hi. I spent part of my career working patrol, also at assigned to Cupertino. I've had to address things like threats to the Jewish community in the Saratoga area and in our other contract cities. So I have to mimic what's already been said, is that those collaborations are essential. We have a lot of contract organization or jurisdictions within sheriff's office, including the jails as a contract. So the idea to provide public safety is pretty simple to me. I intend to be a hands-on sheriff. I understand that we've had some staffing shortages in the recent months in that area, and I don't think that those things are necessary. I think that the lack of effective management is creating some of those things. I think we have to focus on those community relations and the things like the attack on the Asian community that's been going on for a while, and focus on making people feel safe a little better. Yeah, things are good, and I understand that. I'm talking to people out in their patrol area, and they're saying things are pretty good, but we can always do better. And through collaborations and being a hands-on sheriff, I would do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is Christine.
So we all know the Cupertino Police Department is actually a division of the Sheriff's Office and reports directly to the Assistant Sheriff. And my team has been putting together the framework to have the Sheriff's Office possibly absorb the other smaller police departments in the county, like Palo Alto, Los Altos, and Los Gatos, just to name a few, because some of these police departments are operating with unacceptable budgets. These cities could cut their budgets potentially by 25 to 35% just by removing the executive staff and the infrastructure. Then the sheriff would have direct control over the enforcement of all of these cities. And because Cupertino, they rave about the deputies that they have, I think the same would go along with all these other cities as well. And as it stands, I would be looking for potentially a new undersheriff and possibly a new assistant sheriff for the enforcement division The initial evaluation of the sheriff's office procedures would include Cupertino, Saratoga, and Los Altos Hills. My goal would be to put leadership in place that would reflect my vision.
Great, thank you. And Bob, you get to close on this.
Yeah, no, actually, Christine brings up a good point, and that's one of the things we were very successful at in Los Angeles was taking on contracts for cities that no longer wanted their own department or were not in a position to fund their own department. But that's got to be a very careful, well thought out process, because otherwise you don't want to come in as a hostile takeover. But I have familiarity with that because of the amount of contracting we did in Los Angeles. But the relationship is so important that each community has their own set of issues that they want addressed, and it's listening and hearing and adapting to each community and what their needs are. And again, it goes back to that advisory group for each community that we serve, so they have their voice at the table. And so we can dictate how we serve that community based on their wants and their needs. So again, look forward to the opportunity.
Thank you. So those are the 4 questions we've had selected for this round. Each candidate now can have a 2-minute closing remark. And so we're going to start with Kevin.
Thank you. What I'm really proud of is the bipartisan support I've received. Through recent articles you've read that I've raised 4 times as much money. Well, that's been the hardest part for me, even running before when I got 41%. I have never made a direct ask for money. Each request has always been an indirect ask that says, if you want to help, here's your 4 options, lawn signs and the other. So I don't want to be a politician in the worst sense. I want to be the person that says, if you believe in me, you can support me in any number of ways. So when I have Blanca Alvarado and Judy Churko and others endorsing me that have had long-term leadership here because they saw how we ran the jails when it was a national model, and what happened after we lost the jails, the chief and I as the assistant chief back then, it was horrendous. We owe the public more. When I have the law enforcement associations, when I have the unions that are backing me, when I have business that's backing me, they're backing me for a reason. You know, 97% of the DSA backs me because they want change. When I called for oversight the first time I ran, you'd have thought you'd have heard a pin drop of the DSA, but they've come to realize what's happened with management in the last 10 years has been horrific. And they want the oversight. They want transparency, but they want it with a leader that they trust, that has walked the walk, that is led by integrity, never perfection, always striving for it. So I think the things that I'm most proud of are the fact that the overwhelming support I've had has come from people who want to see change. I've been calling it out through the Blue Ribbon Commission. I gave many opportunities to correctional officers to testify for that commission, and they were scared. But I said that it would be okay and their identities would be protected, and they did. That's why over about 200 recommendations came. So I'm looking forward to serving all of us, the unincorporated and the West Valley as well. But we need to do it with somebody who's going to say, I'm not going to be here forever. It's not about the power. It's about the service. We want to give you excellence of service, public service, and we can do it together. I appreciate the time.
Super. Thank you. Sean, you have 2 minutes to close.
Thank you. Well, I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm here to talk about the problems we're seeing in our nation's concern about law enforcement. This department specifically, we can do better. We failed in a lot of ways, but we have a large amount of talented people that are just being misled. The law enforcement community has been mirrored with things like George Floyd and Rodney King, where you saw not just the officers inflicting great bodily harm to other human beings unlawfully, but you saw others standing around. This is the same thing as that's mirrored in leadership. We have a bunch of leaders in police work who won't allow people to come in, who keep denying the systemic failures and the inequities. And you know, when we're faced with law enforcement, you're talking about diversity. Your demographics of the sheriffs across the country are reflective of one demographic. It's 92% Caucasian, male. So when you're having discussions about who's getting hired, the type of training, type of services provided, the discipline, and who's getting promoted, it's singular in nature. In California, we have 58 elected sheriffs, and 90% of 50 of them are white male. We have only had one African American sheriff in the history of the state in 58 counties in 172 years as a state. So we keep seeing the same systemic problems. We're making the same decisions, making the same choices for people to lead us without being inclusive and without being focused on diversity, and we're impacting a number of communities and not being equal. And again, the systemic problems are not just it's a culture, I should say. It is a culture. It's a culture of tolerance. It's of leaders that are tolerant of racism, homophobic comments, things that we've seen in the sheriff's office, abuse, murdering of inmates. All these things were known before it happened, and they weren't prevented. And other organizations in this county immediately have the same problems, and it's existed because of the leadership. If we're going to change the culture, let's do something different. I'm that different source. I'm that solution. And it's not me being at the helm of it being the solution. It's me being inclusive, me understanding the problems, and me being willing to admit to let the community in. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Christine, you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, we all know the sheriff's office is in dire need of reform, and I know that I can deliver the changes that the agency that is needed from the agency and our communities. I am the only candidate who wants complete law enforcement reform. I'm a 25-year resident of the Bay Area and a 17-year resident here in San Jose. I am a mom, an Army veteran, LGBTQ+ ally, and I'm married to a man of color. And all these things help me understand the diverse nature of our county. I want our communities to be safe and protected, and I want Santa Clara County to be a place where kids can be proud of where they live and the residents feel safe. I will fight for Santa Clara County's most vulnerable communities, protect working families, ensure everyone has a chance to live the American dream. So it is your choice to pick a sheriff that will either keep things as they are or pick a sheriff that will force change that will spread across this country like a virus. We cannot expect change if we keep selecting the same leadership that we have always had. And why me over everyone else? Persistence without insight always leads to the same conclusion. Law enforcement is in the position it's in because of the leadership that is or formerly was in place. It's just the wheel that just keeps on spinning, and we just keep hoping things will change for the better. The wheel of the warrior cop mentality and myopic thinking in current leadership needs to be put to pasture, and we must be replaced with younger, critical thinkers that aren't handcuffed with cognitive dissidence. The choice is yours. And please vote for me on June 7th.
Thank you. Bob.
Thanks, Rick. You know, first I'd like to take a moment to actually thank the other candidates for taking part in these forums. You know, they have continually spoken out about the issues facing the organization that they've all worked in for decades. There's no doubt the sheriff's office is under tremendous scrutiny, and the outstanding men and women of that organization deserve leadership that's experienced in 21st century policing practices. But equally important is the community deserves a sheriff who's open to reform, transparency, and collaboration. I have that record of using innovative approaches to building back organizations, keeping communities safe, and enacting the much needed reforms. The sheriff's office needs a leader who's equipped and prepared to face the challenges confronting this organization. And the challenges facing the organization are complex, and it's not the time for someone to learn on the job. We have done an amazing job over the last couple of years reimagining public safety, but there's still so much more work to do. And based on my 36 years, and especially the past 11 as an executive leading organizations, I have the experience to keep moving us forward. Experienced leadership matters, and the Mercury News stated it well when they endorsed my campaign, recommending to voters that Bob Jonsen is the best candidate to bring the new ideas, change the culture, implement reform, and really restore trust and integrity into this organization. The trust in me is also shared by numerous elected officials, residents, the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific American Democratic Club, the Sunnyvale Democratic Club, the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee, and many others. So I ask you to join us in bringing a fresh perspective to the organization, one that is suffering. And I ask you to join us in creating a new approach to public safety, a system based on collaboration, innovation, and reimagining how we serve our communities. I ask you to join us in supporting the men and women who serve our communities every day. I ask for your vote on June 7th. So Rick and the rest of you, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you, Bob. As someone who has spent over a decade working in and around law enforcement, I can say that thank you for everyone who's running for sheriff. That alone is difficult, but the work of law enforcement, the deputies, and generally misunderstood and underappreciated. So it's an incredible challenge when everyone is there to criticize when things go wrong. No one's really sees all the things that are done right. There's incredible opportunities for improvement, as have been discussed. But before that we started, I asked our candidates to stay around for a lightning round. I think we're just going to do one question. It's from the audience, and I think it's a really important one. And so the question is, how will you maintain and improve morale among law enforcement, sheriff's office personnel, given the current environment? I think there's probably no more significant existential challenge to the sheriff's office than that. And so what I'm going to do is just reverse back around in the order, and we're going to start with you, Bob.
Thanks, Rick. You know, that's something I've addressed in every organization that I've come into, again, whether it was Lancaster Station, Menlo Park, or Palo Alto. They had exodus issues going on, meaning people leaving the organization due to morale. And one of the first things I always do is conduct one-on-ones with every employee in the organization. That's really important to find out what the morale issues are, what the operational deficiencies are, and how we can move them, make them better. The last 2 years in this profession have been extremely challenging. And I created an internal solutions group within the organization to come up with morale booster things that we can do to help the morale on a day-to-day basis in the organization and help us recruit and retain personnel. So again, it's something critically important to the organization, something I would address on day one. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much. Christine, 1 minute, just respecting everyone's time. Everyone's busy. How morale?
Well, since I am the only one that's currently working on the line, I see how the morale is daily on a day-to-day basis. And the biggest factor across the board is retention, short staffing. What can we do? How do we get more deputies? And I do have a retention program that does mirror that of San Jose PD by having a deputy stay with the agency for a minimum of 5 years. They do have to pay a portion of their training back to the agency. So that is one of the key components. And because I do get to work, I'm privileged to work with the deputies every single day. That is the consensus that goes around. And there's also the factor of promotions and our promotional process. We'd also need to change that because the promotional process that we currently have is unfair and it is biased, and it is just littered with favoritism and nepotism. So those would be the two key components I would address right out the gate.
Super. Thank you. Sean, 1 minute to talk about morale.
The big concern with the morale is what they're seeing. They're seeing a promotion process where people act as Laurie Smith's weightlifting coach and they get promoted. They're seeing the fact that people who are doing her favors are promoted in succession in 8 years of time from deputy to captain. That's part of what's going on in our organization. They want to know that the leaders have integrity, not going to stand there and plead the fifth. They're not going to be promoting their friends, not going to be tied up with stealing campaign support and encouraging people to vote for them while they're on duty. They're not going to be tied up with their loyalty to the union. People want to have a leader that's loyal to the organization and is going to promote based on ethics and give them opportunity and create diversity. It's not a very diverse it's not a very diverse organization in terms of leadership. The majority of our minority staff works in the jails, which is a lower paid position. Giving those people opportunity and giving people opportunity to patrol to fair promotions and leading with ethics is what's going to change that culture and make people happy about coming to work every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. And Kevin.
I think that people have to realize that the motivation comes from trust. And what's happened here for the last 10 years is that people have trusted me, and I've appreciated that trust. I've earned it because I was given a lot. I didn't start out well in life, but I was determined to make something of myself. I grew up in culturally diverse San Francisco. I taught cultural diversity. I taught ethics for 15 years in the academy. The people that are working for us know me. And that's why when I call for change and reform, they said, we'll follow you because you're going to do it the right way. You have to have trust. So already I've got people saying, if you get elected, I'm not going to turn in my retirement papers. I was waiting, just waiting to turn them in, trying to get out of here. Others that have left, some of them have found great homes. Others want to come back. What we're going to get with morale is leadership that says, I will walk the walk. I have been there for your birthdays, your funerals. I've grieved with you, and I've stood tall in internal affairs and walked people out the door that needed to leave. But I've also built in you trust. We can serve better. We are good people by majority, and the ones that aren't have to go. And I appreciate the time today as well.
Super. Thank you so much. Well, thank you to all of our candidates. Thank you for your service already, and thank you for your commitment to running for this very important public office. Politicians have a bad name, but in fact, elected officials serve a really important function, and I think you all appreciate the difference. So thank you so much. June 7th, I believe, is election day. So we'll watch with excitement for that day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and the best of luck in June and beyond.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
You.